Hello and welcome to the Sterling Podcast. I'm your host, Julia Williams, and today we've got a very special guest joining us. I am thrilled to welcome Rich Brown from QBD, a seasoned expert who brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in the realm of digital marketing. Today, we're diving deep into the topic that's crucial for any brand to thrive online. That's the importance of good content digital marketing. Rich will share his insights in what makes effective content, why it's important, and how brands can leverage pillar content to revolutionize their marketing strategies. So, welcome to the Sterling Podcast, Rich. It's great to have you with us.
Hello, Julie. Yes, great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So, Rich, tell me then, we talk about content or good content, but what does that mean in the realms of marketing?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing just to kind of, I suppose, clarify and clear up to start with, like what do we mean by content? Because I think people listening to this will automatically think, well, he's talking about blogs. And what we're sort of trying to challenge people with a little bit is to almost like think outside the blog in terms of it is any form of content. It's really hard not to use content when you just definition of content, but it's anything that you create which is I suppose giving your marketing message or relaying your message to your audience. So yes, it can be a blog, it can be words on your website, but it's a video, it's a podcast like we're doing now. It can be a presentation that you give to a group, it can be a leaflet, it could be an ebook, it could be a download, it could be an audio file. There's lots of different things that it can be nowadays. So when we say content, I think, initially people's thoughts go to written words on a page, which it can be and sometimes usually is. But it's just think slightly wider than that. As think of it in terms of a video or a podcast or a presentation or a download or an ebook, just all those different variations of content. That's what I mean. It's just the vehicle in which you share information and your marketing message to your audience.
So it seems like there's lots of different strategies there, but why is that important and how can that help, I suppose, build a relationship with the audience then? Why would you do it?
Yeah, so I think that there's two key things to it really. There's sort of understanding what is the right content for you, and there's almost two sides to that. So what's the right content for your audience to receive? So who are your target audience and how would they best like to engage with you, receive that content? So do they like podcasts? Do they watch videos? Do they read blogs? You've got to kind of maybe do a little bit of research to find out what is best for your audience. But then you also need to be honest with yourself about what is the easiest way for you to relay that content. So what content is best for you to purpose? So we've spoken to a few people recently and we've said like video podcasts, for example, are great. They're a really good way of sharing it, but they're absolutely petrified of the thought of themselves being on camera a lot, or they don't like the sound of their own voice. So that's going to be a very difficult sort of relationship to build up with your audience. If your audience love that kind of content, but you don't like giving that sort of content, then that it doesn't quite work as that relationship. So yes, think about what's best for your audience, but also be honest with yourself with your ability to create the content. So if the video thing isn't for you, then don't worry about it. Think of another way. So I think it's important just to kind of have those thoughts in your head to kind of know where you're going. The other point to it, sort of like, why should we care so much about content? Why is it important? Google loves it, basically. So Google loves this sort of content. We often say, Google has dominated internet search for the last 20 odd years. Over 90% of all the searches done on the internet are done on Google. So Google sort of really do, almost like run the internet to some extent. Of yes, other search engines are available, but a lot of searches are done on Google. And if your target audience or your potential audience, those people that haven't even heard about you yet, are going to hear about you and are going to learn about you and are going to visit your website, they're probably going to find you on Google at some point if you've got that content right. So it's a really good way to kind of reach those new audiences. And so, yeah, Google really likes content, and it's about then looking at, okay, what can we do to kind of, sort of keep Google happy, but just the way everything is, sort of Google's taught us how to use search and how to search the internet over the last 20 years, like keeping Google happy. But if you kind of keep Google happy, it kind of makes sense of what you should be doing in your marketing. So, for example, we talk a lot about EEAT, which stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. So those are like the four sort of key factors to what you should put into your marketing. Now, we haven't made that up. That's actually Google's sort of baseline. That's how Google will essentially decide where your website will appear on a Google search. So on your website, can you demonstrate your experience? Can you demonstrate your expertise? Can you prove you're an authority in the sector or the industry that you work in? And then how can you start to build trust? That is the key factors in which they'll sort of assess you as a business. And we found that, when you think about it, that's kind of what you should be doing anyway, like, all of your marketing. So if you're listening to this and thinking, well, Rich, my website doesn't play that big a role in my marketing. I don't really mind too much where I appear on Google because my website's just there for credibility. If you could demonstrate your EEAT through your social media, through your leaflets, or even when you're networking. So if we go to a Sterling network and you're doing your 60 seconds, what can you say in the 60 seconds that you can demonstrate that you're experienced, that you're an expert, that you've got authority in this area? That is building up trust. And we know it's all about building up trust to kind of build up networking. So if you can start to think of your content right from the core of how can I demonstrate my EEAT through blogs, wording on my website, videos I produce, podcasts I do, downloads, ebooks, 60 seconds at networking, leaflets, everything. If you always keep in mind that sort of EEAT, you'll kind of be on the right track because it's what Google wants to see. But actually, it's good fundamental things that will really help you with your marketing and that to build that sort of content marketing strategy where you are trying to build up trust with an audience so they will come to you when they need your products or services.
I think the key thing as well that you just said is it's very easy for companies to think, oh my gosh, somebody else is doing that, so I've got to do it. But it comes down to being authentic, doesn't it? When you said about being honest with yourself and doing things that suit you, your brand, and your company, rather than trying to do everything all at once. I think that's really important. And hearing you say what you said, that sort of, I suppose, backs that up really.
Yeah, it does, and we found that so being honest with the platforms that you can kind of fulfill the needs of will really sort of help you because you can't do it all. Really, you haven't got the time to do it all. 99% of the business in the world don't have the budget to do it all. So you've got to kind of really pick which things you want to do, and just trying to think all the time of how can I demonstrate my experience and my expertise and show that I'm authority, and that sort of comes to the slight elephant in the room of AI that we always have to talk about. And I know we've talked about it previously, that's where AI sort of really falls down, is because they can't demonstrate your EEAT. So AI can talk all day, like just saying things, sometimes factual, sometimes not factual because they have issues with accuracy. But how can AI really understand you and your experiences and your expertise? And if you're using AI to generate a lot of your marketing, you are not going to establish yourself as an authority. And that's, yes, what Google wants to do, what Google wants to judge you on. But that is what like normal people, not just robots, are going to judge you on. And I think one of the interesting things is Google actually tells you this sort of stuff. So they've got a document, it's 176 pages long, which goes through EEAT and all the things that you can do to improve your website from an SEO point of view. Now, as you can expect for a 176-page document, it gets a bit techy, it gets quite detailed, but there are some sort of fundamental things in there as well. So, for example, one of the things is when you go on someone's website, is there clear call to actions? Can I contact them? Is there a phone number or an email address in the top right-hand corner? Have they got a registered business address in the footer? Those sorts of things are huge factors in Google seeing if you're a trusted source or not. And I always think when you think about it, that kind of makes sense, because if we were looking to, I always use window cleaners as my sort of go-to hypothetical business. But say, Julie, if we were going to look to get a window cleaner in and we looked at one website and there was no contact form, there was no email address, there was no phone number, and there wasn't an address where they're based, that doesn't look so good. You compare it to another window cleaning business, where they've got a phone number at the top of the page. You can email them. They've got an address right at the bottom. You can see that they're based in the local area, and here's their registered address. Immediately, you're going to trust the one over. You're going to trust that one over the other one, and so it doesn't all have to be kind of super techy. Sometimes it's just thinking about what can you do to demonstrate that. And we found that blogs, yes, although I said don't think of blogs every time I say content, blogs are a very good way of demonstrating your expertise, because you can give your thoughts on certain topics. You can answer questions that your target audience often wonder, or they're looking for. But another really good way of doing it is case studies. So case studies, we think sometimes almost get a bit lost and forgotten, but they are such a good way of demonstrating your EEAT. So on your website, think about having case studies. And by that, I don't mean testimonials. Don't just have like a list of the top 10 nice things that anyone's ever said about you, sort of thing. Yes, that helps a little bit, but you've cherry picked them. We all have. So, but have a proper case study, like just a page, 500-600 words, all about one job that you did with one client, and talk about where they were and the issues that they were facing and the solution that you presented to them and what the impact of that was. And that's a really good way of demonstrating your EEAT, and that sort of thing should be on your website. That will start to give Google that kind of cue to think, wow, these guys look like they know what they're going on about. But like I said, when we take this into networking, say that in your 60 seconds. And I was at a Sterling meeting recently, actually, when I did EEAT as my 2 minutes education slot. And yeah, it was really good, because I did pick out a few people in the room that do this quite well. And you would have seen it with the networking that you do, where they say, I recently helped someone and they were in this position and I've saved them money, or because of me, they've done this. And immediately that is EEAT working really well, because they're demonstrating their experience and their expertise. And so, yeah, if you can think about that as a way, it will really help you, like you said, with that authenticity of just being you. And like I said, that's where AI you sort of lose the need for AI, because it's never going to be able to do that for you.
And so previously I've heard about, pillar content.
Yeah.
What is pillar content?
So, pillar content has sort of been around for quite a while within the sort of digital marketing thing, and something that we've really taken up and really started to, I suppose, educate and show people more about, and introduce people to, I should say, recently. So pillar content is a real strong way of demonstrating your EEAT. And what it is, the best analogy that I have, I like my analogies and things, Julia. So if you think about, if you put your marketing as a pyramid, and the pillar content is the piece of content that would sit at the top of that pyramid. Now, I'll explain a bit how it kind of descends down that pyramid. But the pillar content is a very in-depth, long-form, detailed piece of work. So it's not just a blog. It would be, yes, it could be words on a website, but it would almost be like a super blog. So a blog should probably be somewhere between 600, 800, maybe 1,000 words if you're doing like a proper, decent SEO-friendly blog. We're talking like super blog. So this would be 3, 4, 5,000 words on one topic, on one subject matter. Because if you think about it, how much detail you could go into. So we've been working with a few people recently, and usually you would have seen it a bit, because it is around a lot. It will be something where a company's done the ultimate guide to ... or such and such a mastery. So again, if we're going to start our own window cleaning business, me and you, Julia, we can do it. We might decide to do, we're going to do the ultimate guide to window cleaning, or the ultimate guide to commercial window cleaning. And you think of everything that you would need to cover in that topic. So you would get a lot of information in. Now, as I said, it doesn't have to be a blog. It could be a video. It could be a podcast. So we could do a podcast for the next 40, 50 minutes where we will talk about all the things you need to consider if you were for commercial window cleaning. And if you thought about all the topics that we would cover, all the different angles we would discuss, all the knowledge that we would share, all the expertise that we would demonstrate, all the experience that we would demonstrate, then that's kind of what we mean by a pillar piece of content. It's a very long form, in-depth, piece of work that really demonstrates you've got a very deep knowledge in a certain area or a certain thing. So I'm just trying to think of another example to kind of help people. So Julie, I know you're very much involved with student education. And so you could do something around, effective, the ultimate guide to working within the education sector. So immediately I know you would think, crikey, there's a lot in that. Like there's a lot of things you would need to know. There's a lot of things about how to approach, how to deal with them, how to maintain the relationships, all these sorts of things. If you put all that into one piece of content. So again, like write a super, super blog about it, like a really long form piece of work, or do a video about it. One of the other sort of types of content that we've done recently is presentations. So you might do a 50-minute webinar talk, host a presentation where you do the ultimate guide to working within it, work for businesses looking to work in education. And you would talk about all the different aspects you need to consider and all the different things you need to do. That is a pillar piece of content. Okay, so there's a lot of effort that goes into it, because you might think, crikey, that would be a lot of work, because there are a lot of things to consider. But if you invest in that and really kind of put the time and effort into that pillar piece of content, that sort of sits there. That really helps demonstrate your EEAT. So we'll really get Google on board and really start to help you that way. But if we go back to my pyramid, if you put that piece of content you've created, be it like a long form, like super blog of like 4,000 or 5,000 words, or a video podcast, which is like 50 minutes long, or a presentation, which is, lots and lots of slides. If you put that pillar piece of content at the top of your pyramid, it can disseminate down all your marketing. So off that pillar piece of content, we could probably write 4 or 5 blogs related to that topic, using sort of what's already in there and like adding to it and adding additional things. If you'd created that super blog or that presentation or that video podcast, we could then almost cut that up and serialize it into about 15 emails. So we would snippet it and we'd only share little bits of it. You don't share it all in one go all the time, because there's probably, if you think there's going to be lots of different points in there, there's lots of different stats, statistics, references, key things, subheaders. So we could probably get maybe like 15 emails out of that one piece of content. You could also get 20, 30 social media posts doing the same thing. And so all of a sudden you can start to see this pyramid forming, where you've got your pillar content at the top, and that information that's in there is kind of going to see you good and see your marketing good for the next 2 or 3 months, because it can be echoed and disseminated out into your blogs, into your emails, and into your social media. And all the time, that you're positioning yourself as that expert. So we go back to, how can you show yourself as an authority? How can you build up the trust that, like, you are the go-to person when it comes to wanting to work with education? And that sort of thing can really start to like position you as an expert. And what we found with this model is it can really help small businesses, because for a lot of businesses, they attack this pyramid that I've just described from the bottom up. This is usually the problem with businesses. And we talked earlier about there's lots of different marketing you should be doing, and how can you do it all? And it's hard to sort of be yourself. So what we can do is, if you start to look at it from, you stop attacking the pyramid from the bottom up. A lot of businesses do this. So a lot of businesses will start with, I don't post enough on social media, and I know I should be posting more, and I don't know what to put. So they start to get in that sort of rat race. They don't really know how to do it. And then they also don't send any emails out, because they never know what to send, and they don't want to come across too salesy. And they know they should be sending more emails, but they send one a month at best when they sort of remember, but they never really get around to it because they never really know what to say. And then they know they want to do more blogs on their website, but they never know what to put. They never have the time to think about the topics. They never have the time to write them. So everybody attacks the pyramid from the bottom up, and it seems so overwhelming, because you've got the demand of all these platforms. You should be posting 3 or 4 times a week on social media. You should be doing 1 or 2 emails a week. You should be writing 3 or 4 blogs a month in an ideal world to try to get some results. But that can seem like a lot, and a lot to take on when you're a small business owner where you've got to do everything else. So if we invest that sort of time and money to do that pillar piece of content and sit it at the top of the pyramid, and then just let that content disseminate down, all of a sudden the blogs that you want to write, the emails that you want to send, the social media posts that you should be sending seems a lot easier because you've kind of got it there already. You've just got to repurpose it, redistribute it in those different ways. And or what we found it works as well is if you've got somebody in your team, maybe someone junior that is responsible for the social media. They're not necessarily like a marketing expert. They've just maybe been given it because they're the younger person in the business. But you never really give them a clear direction on what you should be talking about, and you just sort of post generic stuff on social media, and you never really have that much of a focus to your marketing. Well, again, a pillar piece of content can really give you that insight. So think, okay, we're going to invest in this pillar piece of content. We're going to do the ultimate guide for businesses looking to work within education. So we're going to get that done, and then we know that's going to disseminate down our pyramid. And for the next 3 months, we're going to get a good number of blogs out, a good number of emails, and a good number of social media posts that are all going to be about that. So when you bring that back into EEAT, you're going to be able to really demonstrate across your website, your emails, your social media, but also your networking, because you can then talk in networking about that pillar piece of content. You can maybe bring some of those snippets into your 60 seconds. All of a sudden, for the next 3 months, we can be presenting ourselves as the expert about that one particular thing. And it's all come from that pillar piece of content. And we've just found that it's a way in which businesses can look at their marketing and it doesn't look so overwhelming.
What you've just said actually just makes perfect sense, to be honest, because, like you say, you've got this super piece of content, but then you can break it up almost into bite-sized chunks, and you've got a theme which travels through. But that initial piece of work that you've got to do obviously will take time.
Yeah.
How can you measure the success of your content when you do something like pillar content?
Yeah, Joe, that's a really, really good point and a really good question, because any sort of content marketing that you do is going to take time, for you to build up trust. I've always said things like social media and, your website is a little bit like your networking. The first time you walk into a networking room, nobody knows you. And so how long would it take you to get to know everyone, to build up that trust? And, a thing that I've always likened to, I see a lot of people posting things on social media, but it's always a bit too salesy. And that's the equivalent of walking into a networking room that you've never been into before, standing on the chair, shouting about what you do, not listening to anybody else, and then walking out the room again and thinking, well, that networking was a load of rubbish. I didn't get any leads from it. Now, you would say, well, of course you wouldn't, because you don't sell to the room like that. You've got to build up the relationship. They've got to learn to trust you. So, yes, content marketing can take quite a long time to see the benefits. And I often say, how do you know you're kind of going in the right direction? So if this is a mountain, here's another analogy coming. But if we're climbing a mountain, how do we know we're going in the right direction before we've reached the top? And so sometimes with content marketing, it is difficult because, I could say to you, Julia, we can do that. Everything I've just explained to you about pillar content and the pyramid. Yeah, let's do it. You want to start that window cleaning business? I'll do this for you and it will really work. But you're going to have to give me like a year before, you're really going to establish yourself, because, that sort of 9, 12, 18 months is probably the time. I know that's sort of typically what you'd say to anyone networking. It takes you that time to build up that trust. So if I say to you, yeah, we can do this, I'll do the pillar thing for your new window cleaning business. But you've got to give me like 9 to 12 months before you can expect to see any results. Now, if you say, yeah, Rich, we'll go with that, and I come back to you in 12 months' time and say, oh yeah, it didn't work. Well, the thing, I said, turned out, didn't work. I didn't do it right. So we're going to change it and we're going to do it again. Can you just give me another 12 months and then we'll see if it worked again? We know that's not going to happen. We know businesses can't do that. So yeah, you're absolutely right. How can you know it's working before it's worked? And so some of the things to track usually are just some of those sort of very sort of key metrics that you can get from Google Analytics. But also, if anybody wants to know these sorts of things, we can help. But just little things like traffic to your website. So is traffic to your website going up? If it's going up, you're sort of doing something right. So if you're doing the EEAT thing and you're sharing more blogs, more emails, more social media posts, is the traffic to your website going up? Another metric to track will be the number of keywords that you rank for. And again, if people listening to this not sure what number of keywords they rank for or want to keep a track of it, we're happy to give them that bit of information. There's no charge and there's no obligation to that sort of thing. But if the number of keywords that you're ranking for is going up, that's, you're going in the right direction. There's also a thing called a domain authority, which is sort of a score out of 100 to how much Google likes or trusts you. Now, it's not an official score from Google, but other companies can kind of give you this metric. And again, it's a score, like I said, it's a score out of 100. So you've got domain authority, number of keywords that you rank for, and the traffic to your website. If those three numbers are going up, you're going in the right direction. You're climbing that mountain. You might not have reached the top yet, and it might take a couple more months, but it is working. It hasn't worked, but it is working. And those are sorts of things to sort of track. The other one you could do if you wanted to kind of think more from a social media point of view is, are the amount of impressions that you get, so the amount of people that see your post, is that going up? Is the amount of engagement you get, is that going up? Just those little numbers to start with. If they're going in the right direction, then something is working. You might not have seen the benefit of it yet because people are still learning to trust you, or they might just not need your services yet. Like, I don't need a window cleaner yet, but I might need one in 6 months' time. And your challenge is you don't know when that is, but also I don't know when that is, but I know I'm going to need it at some point. So what you've got to do is to try and stay in my eye line, keep networking, keep doing the social media, keep adding blogs to your website, because sometime in the next 6 months, I am going to need a window cleaner. So you just kind of got to keep going at it, really. But tracking domain authority, number of keywords that you rank for, and traffic to your website are the three kind of key ones to know if it's working.
And with the pillar content marketing, how often should you do these pieces? In a say 12 months.
Yeah, so what we've spoken about already with you, like I mentioned, if you do a decent piece, you could get like 2 or 3 months worth of sort of marketing out of it. Now, you could do a slightly smaller pillar piece because you think, well, actually, the topic I want to do isn't that, I can't go that in depth, or or I just don't have the resources to do it too much. Well, that's fine. It's just your pyramid will be smaller. It just won't last you as long. So we've typically said to businesses, if you were looking to do a marketing strategy for the year, if you had sort of 3 pillars a year, they could be on slightly different topics. So we've been talking to accountancy firms recently because they want to specialize in that. One of their target audience is manufacturing businesses in the Black Country. So we're talking to them, and they'll say, okay, well, one of their pillars could be that, because that will really position them as an authority as an accountancy firm for manufacturing businesses. So that could be one of their pillars. One of the other ones might be around digital tax, because they want to show that they're online digital tax. They're going to do something around there. So yeah, if you looked at doing like maybe 3 a year, that would be a nice number, because that would sort of see you through, and then you could just kind of fill in the other bits with sort of other slightly more general information. In terms of how often you should update it, it's a good question, because what we say is the core of that pillar content should be evergreen, really. You might change it occasionally. You might top and tail it a bit. You might update it. But 80-90% of it should be good, because you're talking about a very core thing. So if we go back to working with the education sector, I know you'll say there are fundamental things there that will never really change, and so that is the same. Now, you might get slightly different things coming in if different things change. There might be slight tweaks to it, but the core of it would stay the same. So it does need to be sort of fairly evergreen. One of the interesting things, I watched, I say attended, but you watch these things, don't you? I attended a Google marketing summit recently, and they were talking about almost like how search is evolving and how much people are changing what they search. And it was a stat that absolutely blew my mind. So here we go. So on average, there's about 14 billion searches done a day on Google. So 14 billion times somebody searches like not just one person, that would be excessive. But there's about 14 billion searches are done a day on Google. About a billion of those, so about 12% of them are new and have never been searched for before. Which I was like, it took me a little while to think about that, and I was like, really? Is that kind of right? Like, yeah, like a billion searches a day. So today, there will be 14 billion searches done on Google, and a billion of those have never been searched for before. No, it's brand new. No one's ever typed that series of words into Google and hit search. And I was like, surely that can't be right. But if you think about how much things have evolved, how much things evolve all the time. So the example I gave it was like a month or so ago when I was talking to someone about this was like AI has changed everything. But 2 years ago, 18 months ago, no one was really searching AI because it wasn't really a thing. And now everybody searches AI. So all of a sudden, people will search how AI can help my marketing, how AI could help me generate leads. Well, nobody was searching that 18 months ago because it wasn't a thing. So you can see as things evolve, search evolves. Now, obviously, we've had a recent change of government, so I know a lot of people at the moment. We track what a lot of people Google. A lot of people are googling what does a Labour government mean for ... housing, tax, whatever it might be. People haven't searched that in crikey, what's it like 15 years the last time they were in power? So that's a totally different change. So although that pillar content that we mentioned has got to be evergreen, you might top and tail it slightly. So, with a Labour government, it might mean that schools act slightly differently. It might mean a slight change in the education system. So you might think, well, actually, that does change how a business would work with it. So I'll take my pillar piece of content. 90% of it stays the same because it's core fundamental things. But I might just put a bit at the top or a bit at the bottom about what it means now because we've got a Labour government in charge. And so you've just got to think that. And for me, what that showed about the content was you do have to keep moving your content along. And, if businesses are sat there thinking, yeah, well, we did our content, we did our website 2 or 3 years ago, or we had a professional copywriter do our content, so we've done that. Well, even if your website's like 2 or 3 years old, it's probably now out of date, probably more than ever. Because if you think 2 or 3 years ago, it was COVID, so it might not. So even before then, so we're in a post-COVID AI sort of world, and we've done this with some businesses, some cybersecurity companies, that Cyber Essentials, all those sorts of cybersecurity things, and again with AI, has massively changed. So they had their website done like 4 or 5 years ago. And what people are Googling about cybersecurity now is wildly different to what they were 4 or 5 years ago. So there is something there about you do have to maybe keep thinking about what is it your audience is typing in, because it is going to be different to what they typed in 2 or 3 years ago or even 6 months ago. And so although pillar content can the core of it can stay the same, everything else on your website, what you're talking about on social media, might just have to be brought up to date. Because if you want to demonstrate your EEAT, but one of the things you might need to do is to be relevant and topical. You might need to be talking about what people are searching. And from all the stats that Google shared on this presentation that I was watching, what people are searching for now is a lot different to what they were searching for 6 months ago.
Definitely. If you were a new company starting out, where would you start, do you think, with the content? If I was a brand new company just going into the world of, marketing my business, what's the first thing that I could do?
Yeah, I think for me, as I said, it's looking at what content you think your audience will want to consume. How would they best like to be kind of communicated with? And again, that's the sort of thing that we can help businesses with. But be honest with yourself about your ability to create that content. So a lot of people often ask me about things like TikTok. Like, should I be on TikTok? Like, well, yeah, in an ideal world, you should be, because it's a really good platform and it can really help your business. But if you can't meet the demand of that platform, i.e., if you can't do 3 or 4 portrait videos a week with some nice funky edits in it, then it's going to be quite difficult. And a brilliant saying that I've stolen from somebody else recently is, these social media platforms have an insatiable appetite. You'll never, ever feel like you're doing enough. So if social media is your main marketing thing, you will never feel like you're doing enough. You'll always feel like, because they want more. They want more. Everyone wants more all the time. So I would say the first thing is to be honest with, your ability to create content and which sort of content you naturally do. You might really like it. You might have a phone that's got a good camera on it. You might like talking. You might find it easy to talk to camera. Then go for it. Brilliant. If you don't worry about it. Think of something else. So that was the first thing I would say. The other thing as well that we've been talking to people about recently is talking about what you don't do, which sounds a bit weird, but sometimes you have to do that to reach the audience that you want to reach. So there's a company that we help that do resin driveways. Now, not that many people Google resin driveways because not that many people know what resin driveways are. Now, don't get me wrong, quite a few people do, but not compared to the amount of people that are Googling block paving driveways. Now, this company don't do block paving, but their target audience is people who are looking to get their driveways done. And if I'm looking to get my driveway done, and I don't know, I've never heard of the term resin driveway, I don't know what a resin driveway is, my default sort of almost like brand name type thing is I'm just Googling driveways or like block paving driveways because that's what I think I need. What they do is they actually have a lot of content on their website about things to consider if you're getting your block paving driveway done, or the 3 things or the 5 best things, or the all those sorts of things. They give you a lot of advice around how to things to consider when you're getting a block paving driveway. Now they do that because they want that target audience. When they've got you on their site and they're telling you about the 3 things to consider when you're getting block paving driveway done, they say, oh, actually, have you thought about getting a resin driveway? Because long term, it's better for the environment, it's more cost effective, blah, 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 all these things. So you can start to then educate you, but they can't sort of go full out on just talking about block paving because not as many people as they want to know what that is. So you talk about the thing you don't do. And it's just maybe thinking about that, of just thinking slightly outside what you do, like outside of your slight bubble, I suppose, for your business. And like, okay, the thing I do, people just might not know what that technically is. Or there's another great thing about, I'm involved with Marketing for Humans with Dave Byrne and Peter Bayliss, and they always talk about, yes, you should have like frequently asked questions, but you should have the SAQs, which is the should be asked questions. So people will ask me about, how many times a day should I be how many times a week should I post on social media, or what is the best platform for me? Those are my frequently asked questions. That's not the question they should be asking. They should be asking something else. And so, yeah, for startup businesses, maybe just think about what it is you do, but because that's not always what people will call it, or they might not understand the terminology that you use. And so do you have to kind of explain it in a different way, or talk about the thing you don't do in order to reach the audience that you're trying to reach?
So, everything you've said is, really fascinating and so useful. I know that I've personally learned loads today. But
Thank you.
have you got any sort of final thoughts or tips on how to stay ahead in this ever-evolving field?
Yeah, I think one of the key things is to kind of keep going at it. That's the thing that we find a lot, is that it is there's no shortcuts, unfortunately. And I think everybody started to kind of see and understand where things like AI sit now. I think in the last year, everyone got very excited about it because you think, oh, can I just delegate all my marketing to AI and it's do it all for me? Sounds great. And I think people have now seen what it is. It's great in some areas. There's some things it's really good at, but I think people are starting to get the measure of it. And so, unfortunately, there's no shortcuts to this sort of thing. So you kind of need to be in it for the long run. And that, again, if you're honest with what content you're able to create, that makes it a lot easier. Because we have some people that say, "Yeah, I know, I really don't want to do the video thing, but I'm going to commit to it." and their heart's not really in it. And, it can take a long time. We are talking 6, 9, 12, 18 months of doing this without fail every week. So just prepare yourself for the marathon that is marketing sometimes. And yeah, if you're honest with yourself about your ability to create that content, then you'll just find it so much easier to meet that. So if you like writing, do blogs, and you're going to be more likely to keep that up than you are the video thing if you're not really into taking videos of yourself. So I'd say that one thing, the numbers that we mentioned earlier, things like domain authority, traffic to your website, number of keywords that you rank for, even today, just make a little note of those things. If you don't know what those three numbers are, then reach out to me. We can tell you. And even if they're not particularly good, they might not be that good because your website might be one that you've done yourself, hasn't had a lot of kind of care and attention, hasn't really had a sort of SEO, EEAT approach to it. That's fine. It's not like a criticism. We will do this to web people and say, look, we're not doing this to kind of point a finger and say that you haven't done your homework and you're told off and you're in detention or something. Like, let's just draw a line in the sand. It's fine. Your domain authority is really low. It's going to be quite low. Don't worry about it. You hardly get any traffic to your website. That's fine. Don't worry about it because you've never had a plan to get people there. We often say, just having a website and just leaving it up there, no one's going to see it. You'd be better off getting a leaflet printed and sticking it on a lamppost because more people would see that leaflet than see your website if you haven't got a plan to get there. So if the traffic to your website is low, don't worry. It's not a criticism of you or your business. If the number of keywords that you rank for is low, don't worry. It's not a criticism. Let's just mark it. So let's see where you are on this mountain. Go away 3 months without fail. Start investing in more of your content. Publish more stuff. Think about how you can demonstrate your EEAT through your social media, on your emails, in your 60 seconds. Come back in 3 months' time. We'll just mark those same numbers again, and let's just see if we're climbing that mountain. And yeah, just be honest and don't. It's not a criticism as you as a business owner. Most businesses are in this situation. I'll just share this final stat actually that they shared at the when I watched that Google thing was like it's like 95% of all the web pages in the world don't get any traffic to them because there's a lot, right? So you think there's a lot of websites out there that do get a lot of traffic, but there are obviously loads and loads of websites out there, and most of them don't get much traffic from Google. So when you look at those scores and your domain authority is low, like I said, or you look at your Google Analytics and the traffic to your website is very low, don't worry about it because probably 90% of the other websites in the world are in the same position as you. So it's not a criticism. You're actually part of the majority, but there is an opportunity there to get ahead of your competition if you start doing things like EE80.
Well, Rich, I've got to say, I did describe you as a seasoned expert
Oh, thank you.
podcast, and you definitely are. You've got such a wealth of information. If anybody wants to find out any more about what we've talked about today in terms of digital marketing or content creation, then please do get in touch with Rich. He's from QBD. And Rich, all I can say is thank you. Thank you for joining us today. And I can't wait for the next time we meet.
Yeah, thank you, Julia. Lovely to speak to you.